Okay, we'll call the Committee to Public Safety to order. It is 4:00. Please let the record reflect that all committee members are present. And if I could have a motion to approve minutes for August 11th meeting. Okay, proper motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes. Next, we are on to public comment on agenda items. Do we have anyone online? I don't think so. Do we have anyone here who'd like to speak for public comment?
Sure.
Okay, could you state your name for the record, please?
Andy Markovich. It's concerning 5141 South MLK. Jen is supposed to be issuing the permit, I was told, in the next day or two. Got my equipment staged, ready to go. Can't wait. It's gonna be fun. We do have our tear out permit, so we have been working on the building, getting it tore out on the inside of it. Asbestos all been done. We've done pretty much everything we need to do to be in place. So we're ready. I can't wait.
All right. And just for clarity, this is the Metro Bowl.
Yes, yeah, the Metro Bowl.
It's commonly referred to, but yeah, thank you for that update. Appreciate it.
All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, on to item 5B, ordinance adoption of the 2021 International Fire Code, Chapter 1610, Section 1610.10. This has been discussed frequently over the last several meetings, committee meetings, and with the full council. Essentially, it is updated from the 2018 Fire Code to the 2021 International Fire Code. There was discussion in this committee that there is a 2024 fire code, and Chief Sturdivant will be working toward that adoption. But in the interim, was very happy that we were considering adopting the 2021 fire code. So with that, if we have a motion to adopt or any discussion.
I would move the adoption.
All those in, any discussion before? Oh, okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Moving on to item C, discussion of the resolution to support and encouragement for House Bill 4260 and 4261. This was brought forward by Councilmember Hussein, and I can certainly go over the nuts and bolts, but if you'd like to speak on it.
No, I mean, this is super, super simple.
Sure.
And really kind of the meat of, I think the resolution is kind of established in, let's see, the third whereas, really through the seventh whereas. But with regard to House Bills 4260, 4261, we are just trying to get them to finally move on this package of, or I should say this legislative package. What it does is it establishes a revenue sharing fund, and we're talking public safety. It kind of establishes eligible expenditures and then designs kind of a allocation framework. And so we talked a little bit about that we actually contemplated in the fiscal year budget that we're currently in as we were actually crafting and vetting that budget. We actually kind of contemplated its passage at some point this year. And so when we talk about, as an example, 10 new officers, when we talk about a live crime center, where you're actually, people actually doing cameras and reporting out, things like that, all really dependent on the passing of this and then the allocation of those dollars. And so thought that, if municipalities maybe stood up and said, hey, you guys got to get busy on this and make this happen. It's a legislature that up to this point has only passed 6 bills this year. So any gentle nudge we can give them, I think is appreciated by folks that are supportive of this. One of the tenets of this package is that we have to prove there has to be some demonstrable improvement in terms of our public safety numbers to continue to get the money. And so that's kind of, to me, that accountability piece is actually exciting. So in any event, this is just a resolution to try to support the efforts of the state.
All right. Any other comments or questions? And I certainly entertain a motion.
So moved.
All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes. Now we're on to item D. Now this is a discussion topic. We had discussed previously in this committee reviewing chapter 654, our current noise ordinance. And I believe it was determined that we're asking law to do a full review and rewrite as opposed to discussing or piecing out you know, portions of this, that it needed a thorough review. So,
Yeah, so sorry, I sat with Law, Lisa and Greg, and looking through this, I think Lisa had a lot of red flags as we started really digging into the guts of this. So what was agreed after 45 minutes of like trying to parse different things out of this is to take this, throw it out, and we're gonna start fresh with a new noise ordinance that's gonna be up to date with things like a phonograph out of the definitions of things. So that is the update, and the law is currently working on it. It's probably gonna be a big lift and take some time. That was also discussed. So I would say that the discussion item probably could be taken off of the agenda until we have some, a draft of what we're looking at. But so everyone is aware, and I asked that we look into finding ways to fight the noise that's on the streets, the backfire with the vehicles. The other night I had a car just cruising down in front of McDonald's, and they hit that button and it was pop, 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 pop. It's insane to me that anyone would want that, but
Right.
Anyways, we're looking at state laws. I do owe them some other city ordinances, which I have on my home computer. But we're going to work together to get this done.
that's fantastic.
That's my update.
Yeah, all of that is accurate. And I would say I am the point of contact on this. So I will be the one kind of doing the drafting and the lifting. So if I know Council President Cost indicated he's got some things that he really likes from other communities, other municipalities. If either of you or the rest of the members of council come across something that you really like, please feel free to send it my way.
Have you already shared those things with me?
Yeah, I haven't sent them. We
Okay,
talked
okay.
about it, and then we ended up on 8 other things. So
And I
I
also
luckily
been
have them
looking
saved.
into what other municipalities are doing. I also think that there's better ways to draft it, without kind of constraining ourselves to what other folks are doing.
Oh, absolutely.
So it's going to kind of be a creative hodgepodge of what we like and then putting it into something that fits for what Lansing needs. And so, as Councilmember Cost said, it is a heavy lift considering we're going to essentially completely rewrite it.
Mhm.
But it is something that I'm actively working on it. We'll hopefully get moving here pretty quick.
I believe the term repeal and replace was used in that room, but not by me.
All right, well, thank you for the update on that, and we'll be looking forward to that. And it is a concern. We all hear it, right? And the noises that President Cost just described, when you're home and you have kids and they were like, is that a gun? Or is it like they just assume that it may be a gun. And so for anyone who's in their homes or out driving and hears that, it's deeply concerning. So
Well, and you don't know. You really don't. And I think the other thing is, it's wild. If you actually Google that, there's aftermarket. I can put that on my Chevy truck.
exactly. Yeah. People enhance their vehicle and
Correct.
quote unquote enhance their vehicles with that sort of equipment. So yeah.
And I
Well,
make this one request.
No,
If we
please.
pull this, which I think is completely appropriate, from the agenda, can you just make sure that it's on your bi-weekly or monthly or whatever
Yes.
leadership meetings with
Yep.
your city?
Yeah. And then maybe just to ensure in 3 to 4 weeks, Sherry, if we can have a touch point or follow up on that as well.
And just for folks' edification, I know you are.
I'm sorry.
I said just for folks' edification, super busy, but you're right, these things take time, right? And so can you just talk to us real quick when the city attorney's office is taking something like this on? Can you just very quickly take us through the steps all the way to ordinance review?
Sure.
Thanks.
So, kind of the baseline of where I generally start is to kind of examine what the scope of my statutory and constitutional authority is. So that requires looking at the Michigan Constitution, looking at the statutes, looking at the Home City Act that gives cities the power to enact ordinances. I then look at what is currently written. As we've identified there are significant things that aren't working. So figuring out from what our ordinance I like, what I don't like, and then looking into other communities, seeing what I like about those. So it essentially is an entire redraft. At that point, once that's all kind of redrafted, our office undertakes what we call ordinance review committee. It's quite possibly the worst meeting I have to attend. It is all of the lawyers in my office. We all have a draft of the ordinance and we literally go through it together line by line and poke holes in it and try to find ways to make it not work so that we can make a strong and legal document that's correct and that makes sense. So we sit there and argue about commas, specific words, phrasing, things like that. So it generally can be a very, very long process, and it's very rare that we have an ordinance that comes to ordinance review and gets out of ordinance review in that same meeting. So oftentimes there would be significant redrafting or editing, and then I'll bring it back to ordinance review and we'll do the whole thing. And at that point, I would bring a draft to you all for us to discuss here at this committee. And I would anticipate that you guys have thoughts as well and changes that you'd like to see and edits that you'd like me to make. And so I will do that, go back to ordinance review, go through that again, and then we'll bring it back here. So it can be a time intensive process, but in the end, to have an ordinance that's defensible, that's legal, I think and workable, I think will be worth it.
That's what I wanted to get to, is that, prior to coming on council, obviously I didn't necessarily have the peek behind the curtain, but that defensible and legal piece, it takes time, right?
Mhm.
And I also think that you could probably, Carol would probably pay to get into one of those meetings, because that is exactly how she likes to eat up ordinances, line by line, poke holes. You've been a part of that process too, but cool. Okay, well, thank you. Appreciate it.
I would just say that, to be clear, the time, we would like to do this before the end of the year. That was part of the discussion, is to
Okay.
get this out before the end of the year. So I was big time scale there. I wanted to make sure that we shrunk it down just a little bit so people are clear.
Yeah, definitely. This is kind of my big project that I have at the moment, my big priority. So, I mean, obviously I still have all my regular duties, but this is kind of the major thing that I'm working on. I'm excited to work on it and to come up with something that maybe fits a little bit better.
I can drop my dog off if you want more duties.
Good joke. Ordinance review reminds me of case review in a previous profession that I had. So I appreciate what you do there. Moving on to item E.
Okay, just for a second, so it's currently not receiving audio. Teams is, so as soon as this meeting's over, the whole committee meeting is gonna go up normal. Get any texts from people saying they can't hear it on YouTube.
Okay.
You tell them to go to the Teams meeting. That's still working perfectly fine.
Perfect.
Okay, great.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We do have 2 people who have currently joined so far. Not sure if we're here for public comment or.
They're probably here for this.
How about for item G? Yeah.
Sure.
Okay. All right. Yeah, very interested to talk about the next several items. Item E, discussion, introduction, and the item is titled Introduction and Set Public Hearing, Zoning Ordinance Amendment 1240.04, defining the term liquor store. And so I believe it's on page 21 of the
Yes.
packet.
Yep.
The updated definition, or the update, which defines a liquor store, meaning a retail store licensed by the Liquor Control Commission, as a specially designated merchant, specially designated distributor, or both, primarily engaged in the sale of packaged alcoholic liquor, beer, spirits, and wine for consumption off the premises of the business. And a couple of items I do want to point out as it goes further in the definition is that businesses licensed by the Liquor Control Commission as suppliers and manufacturers are not included within the definition of a liquor store. And also restaurants, bars, lounges, taverns, hotels, and motels are also not included within the definition of a liquor store. We have any discussion, or Lisa, would you like to speak to this update first before we have comments from committee members?
I certainly can. These next 2 ordinances kind of go hand in hand. We received a request from this body to make some changes to our zoning codes that would essentially kind of buffer liquor stores a little further apart from each other so that we're not running into the situation where we have one literally across the street from each other.
Mhm.
So the first step in in doing that was creating a definition of liquor store that was not over inclusive, but also not under inclusive. So this is sort of what we landed on. The idea behind, the retail store primarily engaged in the sale of alcoholic liquor, beer, spirits, and wine when more than 50% of their gross sales are from those products. So that was sort of how we define what it is to be a liquor store. So that's not going to include your Kroger's, your grocery stores as we know them, gas stations as we know them, but truly just kind of the stores that primarily sell liquor.
Mhm.
So that is that, and then the next ordinance kind of will go through kind of the buffering. And
Mhm.
first step was finding a definition. I will say this has not yet been to your planning commission.
Right.
So we will, this body, before it can take action, will need to send it through for review, but we wanted to get this in front of you for your thoughts, your feedback, and see if you had anything for us.
Is that why Andy and Susan are here?
Yeah.
Probably. Okay.
Just a very quick question. The definition that we have here defining what a liquor store is that comparable to the way Michigan Liquor Control Commission would define a liquor store? I assume it comports with state law in terms of.
It certainly does. And we used like the Michigan Liquor Control Commission's, they define things by license type.
Mhm, right.
So we specifically chose those licensing types that we equate to liquor stores. So that's going to be, your specially designed merchant, your specially designed distributor, things like that. And so we looked very closely at the MLCC's regulations when crafting this definition.
And my understanding is when you talk about, this, making sure it comports with state law, is there was really a couple ways to do this. Maybe I'm wrong, but I thought that there was some discussion about square footage, some discussion about a threshold in terms of gross sales. And the problem with the square footage piece, and maybe I'm wrong, is that, we know how some of these liquor stores operate. They might be rather big, and most of their alcohol is behind the counter, but that is like 85% of their sales, right? So that doesn't necessarily get us after, or get us to where we want to be. But yeah, so that was my understanding. Maybe I'm wrong.
I will say, you know how much I hate ordinance review. And I was on vacation when we put the.
This is,
Uh-huh.
yeah,
I have been briefed on this.
Yeah.
Obviously, I've reviewed this. I don't know the intricacies.
it is that. And then the other piece is that there are other communities that have that as their threshold and their definition. And I get we're operating within our statutory framework, but not just Michigan. Greg
Sure.
owns it back in Wisconsin, actually. This was, I think, what they used to. So.
Yeah, and I don't know if it was stated aloud, but the threshold, let's say a store versus a liquor store is at 50% of their sales and business. That the alcohol and liquor sales do not exceed 50% of their sales is what we have in item
Right.
1. So, yeah, and to me, reading through this, it addresses some of the larger conversations that have been had in full council when it comes to, transferring of licenses and reviews and comments on that when, it's a request to remove from one location to another. What does that conversation look like? And I do recall hearing up on the dais some questions amongst our own colleagues about, how are we determining this? And I think that this definition gives us a really good framework to look at, as well as the accompanying ordinance, which we will get to next. So with that, I guess we could maybe discuss both and move both at the same time, or should we do them?
Well,
one
this
at a
has to
time?
go to planning commission. So
Yeah.
Right,
really-
so would we
Yeah.
need a motion to refer to planning commission
I
or?
think it's chair, you can say that, can't you? Yeah.
Okay.
So, but we could probably discuss the entire package.
Sure.
I still have questions.
Yeah.
So the 50% of gross sales, is that number required by state law? Is that as low as we can go?
I can certainly take it back. 50% was what we landed on in terms of both legal and defensible. If you'd like me to take it back and see if there is a lower.
I'd like to see it at 10%.
So I asked Greg the same thing.
Yeah.
And what Greg told me was that legal, defensible, and then the other piece is from his perspective, he would like to see something like this implemented and see what it actually does implemented, right, in the community. And then he said we can always open it back up, right, and reduce that number, but that was his recommendation.
I think my issue, and I've discussed this with Greg on the phone, is still the fact that for example, we have the Meyer Market on Michigan Avenue. So nothing stopped that liquor store from going in literally right next door.
Right.
We know Meyer has liquor. We know it's not all of their sales. And I understand that you don't want to, it was intentional to not have a grocery store that might get, built and lose the liquor, but I don't think we're going to get any other grocery stores in Lansing. But I'd like to use those distances from that store. So we don't have all these small liquor stores popping up next to it because it's not buffered.
Right.
It's not included in the distance.
That was part of our conversation. Another
Yeah.
part was that he said, you could always potentially, and I think he would have to vet this a little bit more. You all would have to. He said you could also, because we talked about, well, what if you take all of the vices, right? When we're talking tobacco products, we're talking, and that exceeded the 50%. And he certainly said, those are the kind of conversations you guys need to have in committee as you vet this. And, obviously there can be this back and forth. But this is a starting point. I'm okay with it. I mean, I get what you're saying. I would be okay with this as a starting point, but. Whatever.
And I understand your perspectives and I appreciate it. I feel that 50% is fair. I feel like that's a fair threshold. And, for the reasons that Lisa stated a few minutes ago, like what is defensible, and I also agree with, maybe this is the starting point, right? See how that goes.
And I would say, I don't think 50% is fair, and here's why. I have a brand new liquor store that went open on Michigan. We've got one, I just saw the new owners who don't live here touring on Kalamazoo on the other side of Green Oaks neighborhood. And we will have a third one just 2 blocks down on Michigan Avenue opening because we lost the appeal. So when I'm looking at this, I want maximum as far as we can go because Liquor Control Commission made it very clear when Adam and I were on that call that they don't care about what local municipalities have to say. And they'll sit there and listen to a high-powered attorney who is a professional at getting these liquor stores through and call us liars. And I don't appreciate that. So I want to find something that we can nail hard. I mean, we have our local cap right now, I think is 39 or 41. We're way over that. They're pulling them in from Williamston and everywhere else. And I'm just tired. I can drive any direction from my house and be to a liquor store in 2 minutes, any direction. I mean, it's just like enough. I've heard from the neighbors. The neighbors are incredibly upset about the Kalamazoo and Pennsylvania location. With the giant liquor and a chicken and place next door. They find that incredibly offensive and destructive to the neighborhood.
So could we chair, because I don't disagree.
Yeah.
For me, I don't have a problem necessarily this being the starting point. But I told Greg, I said, I think the 50% is too high. I said, but I can understand why you settled on this in terms of at least the first step. With that being said, we don't have to send this to the planning commission right now. We can ask the city
Right.
attorney's office to continue to explore that number and come back at the next meeting.
I want to be
Right.
clear, I understand everybody's point of view. I think what spoke volumes last night, if folks were listening, was when we had a planning commission member come up and speak who did counseling for drug rehab for 35 years, Mitch Rice, who mentioned these kind of issues and how liquor stores impact creating more addiction and worse addictions in neighborhoods because it's not just the alcohol that these places end up selling. They end up selling the MSG filled Takis and that MSG is an extremely addictive substance.
Right.
I did a science report, so I know way too much about monosodium glutamate, but it is. And they sell sugary drinks that are just, red juice. It's just sugar water. I mean, there's nothing healthy. I've gone into the liquor stores in my area numerous times to try to find one thing that's healthy. And it's like an expired Diet Coke, which is not quite healthy, and some old water that's starting to flex because it's been in there so long. This is near and dear to my heart.
So what's the question? The law? Is it
The question is how, we're looking at this. Can we tighten it down more? Can we be more restrictive?
I will certainly take it back and either get you an update to say this is as restrictive as it can be, or we will get you an updated draft.
Yeah, no, that's great. And I understand what the aim was here, was to find some balance, but, I see too many people hooked on stuff. Sunday was a really bad day with someone that has a really bad addiction that's fed by places like this. And it's heartbreaking to see that happen live and try to help that person and you can't.
Actually, real quick. Yeah, I mean, and, we also have to, these conversations are happening simultaneously, but they are absolutely, they're connected, right? So we are, our council supporting something that is absolutely all across the country, has absolutely served to be a beacon across those regions and across those states that have done what we're getting ready to do with our mod pods. And so we have seen, even in Omaha, we have seen the homeless population soar when we do that type of thing. And so it's, I think, incumbent upon this council, as we put that type of beacon up. I actually talked to Linda Carl today. She's got several calls from folks from Southfield and beyond today that saw the press say, "Oh, we're coming to Lansing." And so it's going to be really, really important that we support legislation at the local level that positions our community, right, to be a springboard for those people and not a hammock. And so I think what a great time to have this conversation. I think you're absolutely right.
And I'll just add that the accompanying ordinance, I think, will also help.
Right.
Regardless of what this number is, what you come back with, and tightening it up or looking, could it be 30? Would that be palatable? Could it be, whatever that number is? I do think that the next item, as we continue the discussion, item F, the ordinance to set a limitation within the zoning code for the proximity of one liquor store to another. And that threshold that is defined here is that no liquor store shall be located within 1,000 feet of another liquor store. I'm happy to move that forward. I believe probably when the first ordinance that we've just discussed, when we maybe have more information, a response from your office as to if that number can be tightened up. And then I think both of these would be referred to.
But I think the other piece about that, I think it's critical that we put this on the record as well, is that we are not measuring 1,000 feet the way it's measured in the Liquor Control Act. We're not at the, the front entrance going out to the street, then down, then back to the front entrance.
No,
We're talking property lines, we're talking
Right.
the closest,
Mhm.
kind of meeting point. So,
The only thing I would ask Lisa is the same review on the 1,000 feet to see if we can go.
Lengthen that
Lengthen
amount,
that.
lengthen it. And just a question as you go into those conversations, for the stores that are already established that are within that distance, it's my assumption that
They would
this,
considered a pre-existing nonconformity. so
Correct.
They can remain.
okay, thank you. I think that was the only outstanding question I had on this particular item. But any more discussion on these two ordinances? Okay, moving on to item G. So this is the introduction of an ordinance to move forward to set a public hearing. And this is to address all curbside solid waste collection and clarify recyclable items to be collected. So the page number 1 here gives a definition for what curbside waste collection means. So the regularly scheduled trash pickup, essentially, that we have throughout our neighborhoods. Page 3 sort of removes the list of what recyclable materials may be and instead says as recommended by the Public Service Department and established by council from time to time by resolution. So, it doesn't, this is not going to be an exhaustive list within the ordinance, but instead says we're going to have a list of acceptable items through the Public Service Department. And then moving on to page 5, gets into more of the nuts and bolts of what this ordinance is designed to mean. So I can certainly go over some of the highlights, but Lisa, if you'd like to walk us through this.
Sure. So the intention of this ordinance is to bring trash service to one service provider in the city, being the city. I will note on page 5 of your ordinance, we are, there is a placeholder that the contents of the container shall not exceed, and we just have it listed as XXX pounds. We need a final answer from public service as to what they would like that to be. We were still waiting on that, but wanted to get this in front of you in the meantime. So essentially, I mean, that's what the ordinance does overall, is it brings trash service into the city. The idea is that it will, from my understanding, reduce kind of wear and tear on city roads. It will also assist the public service department. One of the things that my office hears regularly is containers being left out on the street all the time, which is contrary to ordinance. However, because there are so many trash haulers in the city, we don't necessarily know what their schedule is. And so if a bin that's not the city's bin is left out, it's hard for us to tell, is this their appropriate day, et cetera, et cetera. So it will help the enforcement side of that as well as I believe it'll have some environmental advantages as well.
Oh, absolutely.
Carbon emission, things like that.
Okay, sure, go ahead.
Yeah. Excuse me. I will, I'll just add that, so I've been working with the mayor and Andy Kilpatrick on this and legal, I think, God, 2 years, 3 years. I've been talking about it a lot longer. So DeWitt has this, DeWitt, Mason, other communities around us, universal trash. And so a lot of everything she said was absolutely on point. I think some of the other things are, when you look at the research and the studies on this, when people have trash, they end up recycling more, which means you're creating less waste, more recyclable material. So this, I believe, is a better way forward for the city. It's, you know, what other cities have done. As you all know, my big thing is cleaning up trash. Some people knock me for it, but I believe it's true community service. And this would stop those. I have no place to put my trash, so I'm going to dump it on the curbside, roadside, park. They'll have a trash bin. They'll be able to stick it in that trash bin. The other part of this is, you see it every week, the repo trucks come for bins. Under this, that would not happen anymore. It would be billed differently. So you are not going to end up with people that just don't have a bin, and then the curb, you know, trash ends up somewhere else. I will say, in conversations with Andy Kilpatrick, you know, the first year that this is implemented, one of the other things they'd like to do is split the city east-west versus north-south like it is now. After the first year of this, there's going to be a significant price decrease. In that, you know, Kilpatrick has said that, the mayor has said that, because everyone will be paying into the trash system. So from there, you can either increase the services, whether that's a bulk item per month picked up, which would be incredible for everybody, and drop the price, or just drop that savings. So there is going to be savings in this. I want to be clear, because that's, you know, always a concern. It's going to become this big, more expensive thing, but because it's it'll be correct me if I'm wrong, Lisa, a fee-based system, like an enterprise, just like our recycling, it can't exceed the cost of it, correct?
Correct. Yeah,
Yes.
it's not a revenue generator.
Correct. So, but it would sustain what we have right now with our trash service, because we don't have a sustainable model. The other thing that's not in here is we've actually purchased one of those for the dumpsters. So the city's going to be doing their property, and then they're going to be offering that out as well. So, because I'm sure the question will come up about, you know, what about the 4-yard dumpsters? What about the big trash? So, you know, the city's also looking to tackle that. But this gives, you know, the rentals, the homeowners, everyone has a bin. And I really think that this is the right direction for the city. I know that Granger had come and spoken about it last night. That was the first time they've spoken on it. But we're still going to be using their services one way or the other. If they're not picking up the trash, we're still going to be using their facility, paying them to take the trash. So they're still in the business.
Still in the
Yes.
mix, is what
Yes.
you're saying.
Correct. Other communities like DeWitt, for example, just because I'm familiar with DeWitt, Granger has an exclusive contract with that city.
If I may just pop in
Yeah.
right there, the ordinance does allow the city through the public service department, to contract with one or more other licensed waste haulers to
Yes.
assist. So, without speaking as to any one company specifically, the ordinance does provide some flexibility to make sure that the city is able, either on its own accord or through contracting services to be responsible for this.
And that was part of the conversation too, was,
And that was one of the concerns was capacity.
Yep.
And because even when you, referred it last night, people were, so.
and so the last conversation on this with the public service director was to divide the city east-west rather than north-south, because the south side never gets love.
That's right.
And then half the city would be done by a contractor of no name, and the other half by what the city has. And that would allow us to build capacity to eventually take over the whole city. That was my understanding of this. And maybe that doesn't work out and they decide a contractor is the better way to go. I don't know. That would be up to the public service department. So I'll shut up.
Did you have another question?
No. I love this at least as a start.
Yeah.
And I think you said it at the outset. We've been talking about this for a long, long time.
Mhm.
And one of the things that has kept us from really sinking our teeth in this and trying to get this past the goal line is that we have not had an administration that was supportive. And so we felt like it would be vetoed, we wouldn't be able to override. So what you're saying is you guys have actually been working with the
Correct.
public services throughout this process.
The mayor is
And
very
you
supportive
support
of
that.
this.
Okay.
Yep.
Awesome.
Yes.
Love hearing that.
And we actually, I'm sorry.
No,
we-
you're good.
If this council remembers, gosh, I feel like Carol Wood right there saying that line. That was her line.
Correct.
We did already pass in the budget, bins. So those have been paid for, bins for everybody, for the whole city. So that was in the budget we passed.
Do you know what size they are?
They're all going to be the 64, I believe. We were still having kind of a talk about that. I'd have to get back with Kilpatrick, but it sounded like they were all just going to be the same size. That's how that is. When you go to places that have universal trash, they all have the same size bins.
Right.
Mhm.
So I would assume the big bin that I have and a lot of those details are going to be worked out in, what kind of trash service is provided. And then, like I said, after that first year, what are we going to do with the cost savings? Better services, lower the price with better services. So a lot of that is still yet to be.
Do we have yet even a ballpark figure of what cost savings may look like? I mean, I know we're talking about it fairly closely, but.
From the discussions I've had with public service director, a significant cost decrease would happen after the first year.
Okay.
Because you're no longer paying, you have to remember when people dump trash, say in a park or something, I could go pick it up with my pickup truck and it's free. I'm just throwing it in the city bin once I clean it up. Please don't do that, or if anyone's listening, but if the city has to come out and do it, it's expensive. You have a crew, you have safety gear. As just a resident that's picking up trash, I'm doing it on my own. So I don't have any of that, need for that stuff. And some of these places where they've dumped, and these are bags. This isn't like I put my couch there. These are like just regular kitchen bags. They do have a lot of safety protocols they have to follow, and it gets surprisingly expensive. This would alleviate to eliminate, in my opinion, the trash dumping like that, because why would you dump trash when you can put it in the bin that you have and get it out to the road?
I do have some questions about the language that's in here. So maybe you can help address some of those items, and they're fairly simple. There's a portion that addresses bag tags that could be available once the bin is full. Let's say if you have an appropriate tag on a bag of trash that's next to it, it would still be picked up. Do we know how that will be implemented? Can can I buy them at QD or Kroger, or do you know where that they may be purchased in the future, or is that something that would be worked out during the implementation of this?
That would be an Andy Kilpatrick question
Okay.
in his department.
Okay, and so probably also the question of what if a resident buys tags only? It would be, okay. Okay, and I saw that there was so at the same time, this also addresses the application for waste hauler license. And I did, through reading through here, like, it doesn't necessarily affect if I wanted to contract with a company, not of the city of Lansing, and have a dumpster because I'm cleaning out my entire house. I'm gutting out my house, and I can still contract with that particular waste hauler to have a dumpster in my driveway, fill it, and have it taken away, so that this ordinance wouldn't preclude me or any resident from doing that as well. Is that right?
That's my understanding of it.
Okay. And then there was my last question. There's some language that says that if a resident or can demonstrate removal of waste by another legal option, that would need to be proven to the public service department so that they're not essentially double charged. I guess my confusion is if the city will be responsible for hauling all waste, what makes it possible to contract with an outside company if not for like a dumpster service? But I guess I didn't,
Why is that?
I didn't understand it. It seemed like it was conflicting.
Sure, yeah, let me take that one back.
It is, page 10.
I just want to reference that in minutes.
Yeah, that is interesting because the way I read it, understood it was that we would be the sole service provider,
Correct.
either directly or through contract.
And it does mention solid waste in both sections. So it establishes, that the city would be the sole provider of that service, yet 1060.17 item 2,
And
any person who's billed for collection and administrative fee who can demonstrate by documentation acceptable to public service department that they're utilizing another legal option and for disposal of recyclable solid waste and or yard waste.
Sure.
So how does that work?
I will take that back.
Okay.
But to kind of just give you a very broad answer, based on my understanding, that again, I was absent from this portion of the meeting where we kind of discuss these little intricacies, but it's, so say that you have a residential site that typically would have trash service. However, nobody lives there and you're doing a complete renovation and gut. And for that, you've got the large dumpster. So in order to kind of avoid the duplicity of you have a container that you're paying for, but it's not like you're throwing away kitchen trash. You're throwing away all of these materials for building. This is the legal option where I'm storing and disposing of my trash for now.
Mhm.
And then that was my understanding of it, but I would like to take it back.
Okay, so maybe I have a dumpster and I'm not utilizing that cart and I'm not utilizing the service from the city, but instead I'm throwing it in there because I happen to have it for.
I don't think it's for when people are living in properties. I think it was intended, if I'm understanding correctly. But again, I'd like to take it back and have the conversation. And I think Kilpatrick was heavily involved in the drafting of this. And so he also is very aware of kind of the intent behind some of these changes. And so he would be a good person to speak to as well.
Okay, did you have?
No, I was just going to simply say, I thought the spirit of this was to ensure that every residential address has a service provided by, again, directly or indirectly, through the city. And the way I'm hearing this now is, and obviously with your comments, that if in a special circumstance, such as a tear out of a unit turn or whatever that might look like, if somebody can prove that they still had service at that time to meet that unique need in terms of, maybe got a 10-yard dumpster or whatever it is, that they could then, that would be so hard to manage if we were constantly having to communicate with folks. As an example, that had, 100 rentals in the city of Lansing. Oh, well, somebody's not living there this month, so I shouldn't have, you know what I mean? Like, I don't think that is the spirit of it. You know what I mean?
I
Yeah.
hear what you're saying.
I know. So just,
Again,
yeah.
and that was just me reading language and
I
kind of
got you.
pining on the fly. So I
I got
could be totally off base as well, which is why
Right.
I'd like to bring the question back and circle back with you guys after.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. If it could be a little more thoroughly defined on what that section means.
And I wonder if it attaches to C in 1060.18, which is nothing in the subsection shall be constructed to limit the right of residential property owner to have solid waste removed outside of the curbside solid waste collection. That it feeds into kind of giving this out here. But I think, yeah, that still doesn't make any sense because this has the rebate at the collection at the bottom.
Yeah, and to your point, I mean, 1060.17 item 2 doesn't say curbside solid waste. It says solid waste, but I think that for anyone who's picking up this document to understand what the ordinance is, I think it should be a little more thoroughly
Yeah.
defined. It would be helpful.
Clarification.
Mhm.
But I mean, it does go on with better language further on there where it talks about the annual fees. If I'm paid, it'll be placed in the tax roll.
Right.
Which is, I think, that's the key for this working is that there's money coming in to support it.
So then I guess I have a question.
Sure.
Just because there are outstanding questions and we need some clarification, and we want to make sure as a committee, I would assume that when we go out here, we can answer those questions and, gives us the best opportunity to actually have a public hearing. Should we hold off?
Yeah, I would like to, maybe place this on our next agenda. And I absolutely agree with you. I think it would be better to present a solid product and document that we're more than comfortable with moving forward before it's set for
How
public hearing.
quickly do you think you could get the definition of what that means?
To get the question answered,
Yes.
I imagine I'll have something to report back to you by the next meeting in 2 weeks, for sure.
No, I'm talking like if someone didn't want to delay this. How quickly could you get this answered? Like, could we have it answered if we move forward with a public hearing on this date, would we have a answer to that?
By the public hearing?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't see why not. You're gonna have,
Well, you would.
Well,
set
it would be the
August 25th.
introduction, right? It would be the introduction and the public hearing would be.
if I was here,
How about by the time we introduce and
Yes.
establish the public hearing? That's when we would need answers. The only thing is, and the only thing is, it's either, I've been doing this a long time, you have to. You're either going to, when there's this many outstanding questions and the potential for changes, you're either going to spend a little additional time now trying to get it right, or there's gonna be additional time on the back end, and if there's a substantive change, then we have to go through the whole process again. So, I don't know.
Well, sure. Yeah, I think it's worth taking time to get it right before presenting it. So if it's a difference of 2 weeks, I'm okay with that. Again, I'm happy to take any other suggestions.
Or,
Or you could
I mean, we'll wait.
move it to intro and
I just think the problem is if we sit on this, you're gonna have big money that's gonna come flowing in and threaten philanthropy again and, try to derail, what is a good move forward for the city. For many people that can't afford trash. But, let's delay it.
Meet on the 26th. So,
of this,
yeah.
right, so the
you-
next meeting
This
would be on the
would be
26th.
September 26th.
August 26th.
Sorry,
Oh, I'm sorry, August 26th, and then it would go to set the hearing on the 8th of September. Set the hearing on the 8th for the 22nd.
for September 22nd would be the public hearing then?
Yep, and what works out well is September 22nd, you have public safety September 23rd, and you have 3 meetings in September, so it'd go back to council 29th. So in the month of September, you're gonna set a hearing, hold a hearing, and adopt.
Which would all be accomplished that same month.
Yeah, it all in the,
If
in the
we-
whole, if you wait until the 26th of August for them to bring back their changes to this committee, you're still going to then at that point set the hearing on September 8th, hold the hearing September 22nd, comes back to committee the next day to take action on the ordinance. And by the following week, because you have 3 meetings in September, you'll be adopting it on the 29th if all looks well.
So if we
In the month
delay
of September, you're gonna do it all.
adoption, September, okay. But if we were to move this out now to introduce and establish, give us that timeline. Would it
The hearing would be the 8th.
be
The
Yep.
hearing would be September 8th. It'd be committee September 9th. And if you guys take action, you're gonna take action a week earlier, the 22nd.
Yeah,
a
so it's
difference of
1
week.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean,
Because like I said, you've got 3 meetings in September.
I didn't
This
think it was
gives
2.
law, you know, a full 2 weeks to get the answers and back here to committee. And you still have that blank public service too.
Yeah, and that was gonna be.
This is on the next
Yep.
meeting agenda.
Yep.
Correct.
Perhaps having public service here may also be helpful at the next meeting. If they, because I can't speak to obviously the policy side of this. implementation. So just wanted to throw that out there as an option because I am limited in my lane here.
Sure. Yep, absolutely.
So 8/26.
Perfect. No other business. We're adjourned at 4:51.